Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
We're the brothers coming back at y'all with Lord's will. Another edifying lesson, all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And as always, before we start this lesson, let's give all the praise, honor, and glory unto
Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rachakadash.
Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers. Shalom to you, brothers across the four winds of this earth, pushing this truth and all righteousness and sincerity. And as always, peace, blessings, and salutations to you, sincere Akim Wa'akwat, with all diligence to make your calling and election sure in these last days, man.
Water boy. Shalom to all you Akim. Shalom to all you Akwat, you brothers and you few sisters that subscribe to this doctrine that was given through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, to our beloved elder apostles on down, to our elder bishops, elders, and Akim pushing this gospel and truth and its sincerity today. A peace, blessings, and salutations be up to you and your household. Amen. Well, this is ultimately another episode, the 8th episode of, Wisdom's Fountains of Living Water.
Right.
And in this lesson, we're ultimately going to go into, World War III, in the two nations, which are in the news, the two biggest nations, as far as, current events that we've seen, the two nations that are ultimately going to play a heavy part and are playing a heavy part when it comes to this World War III that's ultimately about to boil over, man. It's about to, once the Charagma gets introduced, hey, World War III is going to hit, man, and that's going to be it. Yahweh Shai is going to come, and that's going to be, the end of Esau Edom's rulership. But nonetheless, again, we're going into those two nations, which will be, Iran and Russia, which are allies, which play heavy roles, within, that the prophecy of World War III, which is to come. Right. So ultimately, we're just going to hit some precepts, we're going to run through it, man. Lord will, it is edifying. Lord will, it is straight to the point. So with that, we're just going to jump right into it. Revelations, the 11th chapter. Baruch Shah.
Khan, this is the book of Revelation, chapter 11, and verse 14.
Mm-hmm.
And it reads, the second woe is past.
Right, which is going into what? World War II. I think it's in Revelation, the 9th chapter. It says, one woe is past, and behold, two woes coming quickly, or two woes coming after or hereafter. Which is going into World War I. So we're talking about World War II, and in the third woe, which is World War III, is to come quickly. Go ahead.
Khan, it reads, the second woe is past.
Right, it's already passed.
And behold, the third woe cometh quickly.
Right, man, and we're seeing that, that water start to, heat up and start to boil, man, which is that third world war, that third woe, which ultimately you go back into, the details, of these world wars, and they're nothing but destruction. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, thousands upon thousands of people dead, civilians and non-civilians, man. So these are, times of destruction. That's why woe meaning destruction, right? This is exactly what these times are, man. And this last, this last world war, the last woe, is currently again in the making as we speak right now, man. And again, we're going to start with Russia because that's where a lot of the news, current news, and main focus of the news is at right now. Because Russia is America, ultimately, put sanctions on Russia, because they had invaded Ukraine, right? Once Russia invaded Ukraine, that right there was the beginning of World War III. That was a huge step because Ukraine is trying, still to this day, is trying to be part of NATO. Which Ukraine is basically a territory of Russia. Russia is inhabited. Russia's saying no, you're not. You're not going to go and be part of America and its North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is exactly what NATO is. It's the military side of the beast, right? Because you got the EU, which is the more economic, more financial, side of the beast, and then you got NATO, which is the more the military side of the beast, right? And Ukraine is ultimately trying to be a part of that, And with Russia, America and NATO, were sort of on board with it happening, until, Russia ultimately started invading Ukraine and causing a whole bunch of problems. And NATO was saying, because you're not part of NATO, we can't come in there and give you any of our military assistance, And then America is saying, we'll give you aid, but we're not going to send you anything. They cleared the airspace, made it to where, a NATO can't go in there. None of America's allies can go in there and help, so on and so forth, proving to the Ukrainian people that, America ain't shit, right? America ain't shit, which is more proof of America's, power and influence over the nations waning. But nonetheless, going back to the point, Russia it has invaded and is continuing to invade, Ukraine, right? And that's causing more tensions between America and Russia, because America put those sanctions on Russia. But what did Putin say? He said, "You put sanctions on us, gas is going to go fucking skyrocket to $300 a barrel, and it's only at $150 right now, man. It just hit $150. Gas is skyrocketing here in America, right? So the more America ultimately, tries to put more sanctions on Russia, the worst things are going to get here in America, because ultimately what is going on is Russia doesn't need America.
Yeah,
that's true. Russia has its own, currency. A lot of Russia's allies, are getting rid of that American dollar, or, waning from that American dollar and getting in business with Russia. Even America's allies are getting in business with Russia. Germany and many other countries, they're looking at America like, what the hell? Why are you putting sanctions, and why are you saying that we should not, buy crude oil or any type of, wheat or anything like that from Russia? And when we need those resources, man. We need the resources that Russia has, because Russia is a high power within the earth, man. Within its resources, within its military, and so on and so forth, right? So these nations need Russia, right? But America's pushing. America's butting heads, and now, which we saw this coming. We knew it was coming. You got America talking about, Sleepy Joe talking about and blaming. Really, it's ultimately a false flag situation, but blaming Russia for possible security, cyber attacks,
yeah.
Which haven't even happened yet, and they're already starting to take aim at Russia.
Yeah, Joe Biden, in that video, he's like, it is coming. So who knows what these devils are getting ready to do?
Right? How do you know that's coming?
Right?
How do you know that's coming, man? Well, 2 Corinthians 2:11. We're not ignorant of Satan's devices, man. We understand what's going on. We understand that, certain things have to play out for it to get worse, for World War III ultimately to fully come. Because Russia is not just going to attack, according to the scriptures, Russia is not going to attack America for no reason. America has to be pulling strings and causing all these problems for these nations to lash back out, against America. Can we grab Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter? And I think it's verse 5. It may be 5 or 6, because this plays out with America's, anybody that had partnership, with America, what is that? Let's verse 6, Uncle Shaw. And this goes into many nations, man. America's allies, America's partners, which at one point Russia and America, and actually to some degree, are in a partnership with each other, when it comes to the oils and this, oil and other minor things, which ultimately that tie is ultimately starting to, break. But nonetheless, it goes into America's allies and America's partners, those that are, not necessarily allies, but they're in business with America, right? Go ahead.
God, Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 6,
right?
And we shall not all these take up a parable against him,
right? Which again going into those allies and those partners coming up against Babylon, for his wickedness, for his lies, for his deceit. Go ahead.
And a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his.
Mm-hmm.
How long and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
Right, that thick clay is ultimately going into America's debt, man. Because America's not paying off no debt. America's, $30+ trillion in debt. America borrows, but not ultimately doesn't pay it off. But again, these nations that America, because almost every country on the planet, America owes money to. Main one will be, China. They own majority of America's debt. Which we see China, ultimately, playing on that, getting upset at America, separating from America. Hey, even Russia, to some degree, owns, America's debt, because again, America is partnered with these main nations. These are not America's allies, but yet, guess what? They're partners with America, And again, the main focus of this lesson would be, that major power, which would be Russia. Russia is coming up against America, saying, "What the fuck? This is a nation that causes this problem, blames people for this, blames people for that. They want to throw sanctions on people, for this, that, and the third, and all these things are happening right now, man. These nations are ultimately coming up against America, Hey, but again, America's not, giving up and saying, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong, America just keep fucking pulling on that coattail, man. Keep pulling on that coattail. Keeps poking the bear. Bear being Russia. Keeps poking the bear. Keeps poking the bear. Keeps poking the bear. Until what? Until Russia is going to ultimately rise up against America in war. Yep. This is what it's leading to, man. You got precept?
But no, we finish this, or you want me to?
Yeah. Just finish that. Finish that real quick.
Next verse.
Yeah, get the next verse, Papa Shaw.
Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 7. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them?
Mm-hmm.
Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein.
Right. And that's basically it. We can stop right there. But can you grab Jeremiah? Jeremiah 50, and you read verse 9. Again, like I said, America, is pulling on that coattail, constantly causing these problems, constantly, doing that. These nations are realizing, that America ain't shit. Like it says, come and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. For there is no more throne. Right? America's power is waning. America's influence over the nations, and America's deception over the nations that it once had, having these nations think that America is just this great, land of, what is it, home of the great land of the free, some type of fucking, when it's really not. It's a nation of, that was built on lies, built on deceit, built on, people being ignorant to its folly, so to speak, man. This is what America was built on, man. And with that is being revealed, it's not being able to be hid no more, which again is pushing America, which is having these nations push America to the side. Like, who the fuck are you? This is what, Isaiah the 13th chapter, man. Is this he that, matter of fact, let me grab it real quick. I'll just bring it out.
All right, precept.
Yeah, you can bring it out.
Back to that point you made. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 12. It reads, woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, establisheth a city by iniquity. And that's ultimately what Esau did, man. And you look how America was built. It was built on the backs of the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. Esau did some, very treacherous things to us as a people. You see, but that's how he established, this land, man. Or in his cities, in his towns, it is by the blood of the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, man. You see, but the scripture says, woe to him that does that. Woe means destruction. Now just to back up the brother's point, that's how America was built up, man.
Yeah, just going into it, again, America's power waning, America's influence over the nations waning. Isaiah the 14th chapter, verse 5, It says, the Lord Yahweh Bashmel Shah had broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hinder it. Right, man. You know, and that's what's coming. You know, and we're seeing that start to take place. You know, spiritually, economically. You know, this place is ultimately being, broken down. You know, and it's a blessing, man, to see this place fall, man. You know, like the Lord Yahweh Shema Shai, says it's what is that saying?
Let's start the 25th chapter.
Yeah.
And it's man should be happy to see the downfall of his enemy.
Yeah, man. You know, so call Lord Yahweh Shema Shai, man. You know. But yeah, going back to Jeremiah, the 50th chapter, you can start at verse 9.
This is Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 9. It reads, "For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country."
Right, which that north country starting, is Russia, man. You know, Russia is that north country, right? And you're seeing a lot of nations pairing up with Russia coming up against America, right? It goes into America's allies, goes into, Russia's allies, which one of his allies we're about to touch on, because again, there's two major nations, that have been in the news a lot, which is one of them, is Russia, obviously, and one of them is Russia's allies, that's been in the news a lot about certain events that are taking place. But nonetheless, this assembly of great nations is talking about a vast, array of nations, from China to North Korea, which ultimately brothers have been talking about how North Korea and South Korea are going to return and become one nation again, and turn against, America, and all these things are ultimately starting to play out as of right now. You don't hear about the war, any kind of conflict between South and North Korea anymore.
No.
That's not even in the news at all. People aren't talking about that. Why? Because again, all these nations that were once allies or partners with America are starting to realize, the wickedness and the deceit that America has been spreading upon the whole earth, right? So we can actually hold that. Don't finish it. We're going to go to Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, and we're going to get some of Russia's allies, right? And we'll start at verse 30, verse 1.
God. Yeah. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38 and verse 1. And it reads, "And the word of the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shai, came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog."
Right, which so we ultimately know, that Gog and Magog go back to Japheth, right? But Esau, Edom, like it says, Habakkuk, the second chapter, the fifth verse, he keepeth unto himself, all nations, right? He goes and he and Psalms, the 49th chapter, the 11th verse, he goes and he takes over those lands and call it by his name, and forces those people to ultimately follow his philosophy, right? So right, those people were ultimately kicked out of that land, which is the Japhites. They were kicked out of that land, and Esau moved in there, right? Which the land of Magog and Gog is Russia, but those are Edomites, right? This is talking about Russia, the Edomites, the Russians, Edomites. Go ahead.
Verse 2, "Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him."
Right.
"And say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal."
Right, man. And yes, we're going into, how ultimately, Russia is coming up against, America. And don't get it twisted, man. The Lord Yahweh Shai is still against these damn devils, man. All we're seeing is Matthew's, Matthew's, the 12th chapter, the 25th verse, where a nation being divided against itself shall not stand. So not only, yes, Russia's coming up against America, which Edomite versus Edomite, but that does not mean that Russia's not going to fall as well. This is what we're prophesying against, Esau, Edom as a whole, whether it be Amalek, whether it be Russia, whether it be America, whether it be, you know, wherever they be at, man. You know, Esau is going to fall no matter what, no matter where they be at, no matter what land they took over, you know, no matter who they portray to be or try to portray to be, you know, they're going down either fucking way, man. You know, fuck Esau, man.
Yeah, that's right, man. Fuck Esau.
Right?
Yeah, because those damn Edomite elites, they watch these videos, man.
That's right.
You know, scripture say that the book of Psalms that the wicked watcheth the righteous and seeketh to slay him, man.
That's right.
It was say a dreadful sound is in his ears.
That's right.
The devil hates hearing that we expose the things that he does, you know, exposing that shame. All right, ultimately telling him of what his future is. You can't get away from it, man. You know, this is what's written for you. You know. God. It's like, well, we're
Ezekiel 38.
Ezekiel 38, chapter 38 and verse 4. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws.
Now this is talking about Russia, man. Talking about Magog and, you know, land of Magog and Gog. You know, this is what the Lord Yahweh Shemashai is doing to the Russians as we speak. You know, which when it says that, you know, I will turn thee back to what? Turn thee back to that Soviet
Union.
Yes, yep, that Soviet era type mentality, man. That Cold War mentality. You know, which is what Russia was against America in the Cold War. You know, Russia was against America in that Soviet era. Well, guess what? You know, for a period of time, I think it was in the 90s or late 90s or something like that, when the Soviet era was ultimately taken out. From that time till now, and Russia was at bay with America. You know, they were partners, oil and wheat and so on and so forth, selling back and forth to each other. And well, now that stops, man, because the Lord Yahweh Shemashai, you know, ultimately had America doing certain things that sparked this bear, you know, because again, he's not, you know, I mean, Russia's not just going to come up against America for no reason. The Lord Yahweh Shemashai has put it in the mind of the elites to have America moving a certain way, which the Russians wouldn't like, right? Which would piss them off. And then, you know, the Lord Yahweh Shemashai stirring up the mind of the Medes, you know, which again would be the Russia, you know, having it to where they don't like certain things, you know, going back to what they, you know, because in this time they were more docile, but back then, hey, they were not docile at all. You know, they were about it back then. You know what I mean? America and you know, Russia had many very close ties when it came to war, you know, back in the time of the Cold War, you know. I remember something, you know, it's called the Bay of Pigs, you know, which would be, you know, over in Cuba, right? Where America, you know, Cuba was ultimately trying to buy, you know, nuclear missiles from Russia, right? You can go do your research on this, you know, America, and this stuck with me when I was in high school, you know, that I, you know, did a little bit of research, but, you know, Cuba has always, you know, was a communist country, you know, has always been, you know, closer to Russia than it's been to America, right? Even though it's right off the coast of, you know, America, right, you know what I mean? Right. It's always been closer, you know, economically and politically to Russia than it has been America, right? So they've been trying to do deals, but America was like, no, that's way too close for Russia to be planting nuclear missiles, right? So America ultimately, you know, had set up a boundary around Cuba to where Russia couldn't, you know, come in. You know, they literally had their fleets, you know, surrounded Cuba, and Russia would be coming closer, and they had, you know, like they were inching closer and closer and closer, and ready to come, but you know, they were deterred because it wasn't time for that war. It wasn't time for America and Russia to go to war at that time, and they even show you that in that movie, the X-Men First Class. Oh, okay. They even show you that. You know, they show you a piece of that where that war was coming. You know what I mean? It was coming close, but you know what I mean? It never happened. It wasn't that time for it.
You know, those missiles got shot off.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is also that's adding, you know, to the actual situation that happened in real life, but nonetheless, right? You know what I mean? They basically showed you a piece of that. You know. But this is that mentality the Lord Yahweh Shemashai is putting on Russia. You know, he's putting them back into that, you know, I want to go to war, go ahead and fucking try me if you want to type attitude, right? Which we're seeing. You can start at the top of that again and read down.
Come, Ezekiel chapter 38, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army horses and horsemen.
Right, which we're seeing. You know, Russia's flexing now, man. Russia's using their military now, man. You know, they're over in fucking Ukraine causing fucking havoc. They're using their fucking,
Hypersonic missiles.
hypersonic
I
missiles.
was watching it on the
Man.
news last night. Yeah, you saw them.
Multiple times have they used them, man.
Boom.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's like, come on, man. Russia flexing, man. Keep going.
Khan. It reads,
All of them.
and all thine army, and horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor,
Right,
even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords.
right, man. You know, that's what's going on, man. I mean, Russia's building up that army, flexing that army, you know. But it's not just America, it's not just Russia that's doing that, man. You know, and you got allies of Russia that are doing the same thing, which we want to go into those allies. You read verse 5 and 6.
Verse 5, it reads, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya, with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee.
Right, and then you're just going into these nations. It goes into Turkey. It goes into Ethiopia, Libya, and the main one that I want to touch on is Persia. You go back and you look up Persia in Google, and they'll tell you, which is Google. This is scriptures talking, but you can go and look it up and verify that this is talking about Iran, right? Which is another country like that's been in the news. You had that skirmish that just happened between Israel and Iran. Can you give me Jeremiah 49? I think it's verse 25. At least the flock shall draw them out. But you had that skirmish that went on between Israel and Iran because Israel had just sent over, rockets over to Syria, and shot on, basically a military encampment, and there were Iranian, military, I think commanders or something like that were there, right? And then Iran was like, what the hell, man? We didn't do anything to you, and fuck you, man. We're gonna fire off. So they fired off on an Israeli center, a strategic center that was in Iraq, right? And blew them up, right? And this is what's happening, man. Well, the brother's about to bring it out, but the least of the flock shall draw them out. The least of the flock is going into Israel, man. Go ahead, bro. Verse 45.
Here you go, bro. This is Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 45. We therefore hear ye the counsel of Yahweh that he hath taken against Babylon, and his purposes that he hath proposed against the land of the Chaldeans.
Right, which the land of the Chaldeans are ultimately going to, wise men, which would be more likened to the Amalekites, man. Go ahead.
Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out.
Right, man. The least of the flock, Israel, is going to draw out this war, man. Which we're seeing, because what's going to happen? You're going to have, what's going to happen is, because America backs Israel. Israel backs America. They're basically one, and Iran is going to get to the point where Israel's going to keep, because what happened with Gaza, man? They kept firing on Gaza, constantly beating them down, and they just wouldn't fucking stop, and Iran retaliated ultimately in defense with that shooting. What's going to happen? You're going to have, Israel, they're going to, because Israel, hey, these fucking Edomites, man, the Amalekites, they're fucking prideful as shit, man. They believe that they can do anything. You read the fucking Talmud, they believe they can do anything wicked as hell because they're the so-called chosen, man. When they're not, man. They believe they can do fucking anything they fucking want, man. And get away with it. And they have been, within history, you look at history, they've been getting away with anything that they fucking can do, So, Israel's going to fire back, man. Like, no, we get the last fucking say. Hey, but what does it say? Go back to Ezekiel, the 30th chapter, and read the 7th verse, man. Because you got to understand that Iran is an ally, a direct ally. It's the number one ally that you read that's talked about in the 4th verse. It says Persia and Ethiopia and Libya with them. Hey, Persia is Iran, right? That's the number one ally as far as the scriptures, say, and what's been in the news, hey, that's the number one ally or the top ally of Russia, man, and you're gonna fire on Russia, or you're gonna fire on Iran, well, that's gonna cause Russia to get into the deal. And what happened when they fired on Gaza? And Russia came out and said, if you don't fucking stop, we're going to fire on you. But that wasn't the time for it, right? So the Lord Yahweh Shah is causing another situation that is ultimately going to spiral out of hand that Russia's going to end up getting into. And we know when Russia gets into it, America's got to step into it, you know, because America's a major power. You know, they're still a major power, you know. Russia's a major power. Russia alone would cream the shit out of Israel without even fucking blinking, right? So America's got to come to the aid of Israel, and that's how it's ultimately going to start. The least of the flock is drawing them out right now as we speak, man. You know, Israel is drawing them out. They're causing problems between, you know, Russia's allies, which is ultimately a problem with Russia because it's hurting Russia's, you know, investments, so to speak, man. Right. You know, this is what's going on. You can't read that verse, verse 7, Ezekiel 38, verse 7.
Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 7. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, be thou a guard unto them.
Right, it's talking about Russia, man. Russia is a guard unto these nations, man. And we saw the first glimpse of that when that Israel and that Gaza, you know, bullshit happened. You know, Russia jumped in there and said, if you don't stop that, we're going to fire on you. You know, we're going to have fucking problems, you know. And eventually they sort of cooled down. The situation didn't get too bad, too out of hand. But still, even then, they still got, you know, they're still, you know, they got skirmishes going on, you know, here and there between, you know, Israel and Gaza, man, you know, still going on, and then they never really stopped. But that shows you the mindset of these damn devils, man. Who are you to tell us to stop? You know, who are you to command me? You know, and so you got to understand that this is going to spiral out of hand. You know, it's going to spiral out of hand because this right here, what it's leading to is that World War III, as the brother was reading in Revelation, the 11th chapter, the 14th verse, man. You know, a war is being prepared, you know, on all sides, you know. Yeah, you could drop that. I just wanted to get certain points out of that. What do you got on that?
I was holding it.
You sure? Okay, so keep the Jeremiah the 50 and verse 9, but let's go to Joel, the 2nd chapter. Matter of fact, I'll grab it right now. Keep that. You got a few. Hold up. So I'll grab Joel, the 2nd chapter and verse 9. And this is what's happening, right? This is Joel 2 and 9. It says, it's like in Joel 3 and 9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, right? So war is being prepared, right? Certain situations are taking place in order for that war to be drawn out, right? It says, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. It says, beat your plowshares and the swords, and your pruning hooks and the spears, let the weak say I am strong. And this is exactly what's going on. You know, you got North Korea threatening America, you got Iran threatening, you know, America, and you got all these little mini nations or smaller nations, you know, coming up against America, like Ukraine. And now they're like, what the fuck? At least the people are. You know, Zelensky is still, you know, obviously still trying to get part of NATO and not backing down from Russians, you know, demands, you know, but nonetheless, the people are like, what the hell, man? You know, eventually they're going to rise up against the, you know, the government, push out that government, and Russia's going to come in there and establish their own government, right? And they're going to come up against America, right? So eventually these things are going to take place, right? Verse 11, it says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, gather yourselves together round about, right? And this is what's going on. It says, thither cause thy mighty ones to come down on Lord, right? But those mighty ones go into the angels. They've been stirring up the minds of these nations, all these nations, you know, not just Russia, not just Iran, not just America, not just Israel, but other nations as well. You got France turning against America, which really, you know, and all these things go back to America. They start with America. The Lord Yahweh Shah is having America do certain things that does not sit well with these nations, man. America stepped on the toes of France by entering into that AUKUS deal, man, you know, with Australia, you know, bringing UK along, you know, and making it an America, UK, and Australian deal. They went over these nuclear submarines, and when France already had a deal for the nuclear submarines with Australia, you know, and then it didn't even stop there. And they continued and went on to another nuclear submarine deal with Greece. When France had the same fucking deal that he had with Australia with Greece, America stepped on the toes. That's the longest and most trusted ally, and they stepped on their toes, man. You know. So now France is like, hold on, all you European countries, you got to rethink your relationship with America, because we've been allies since 1776, even longer than that, you know, and they just backstabbed us, and when they just became allies with Australia not fucking 30 years ago, not 30 years ago, but you're gonna step on the toes of someone you've been allies with for over 200 years. You're fucking bugged the hell out. 250 years, you bugged the hell out, man. You know, America's a terrible fucking friend, man.
Worst friend, man.
The worst fucking friend ever, man. You know, so that's going on. And well, then you got other allies, other European countries such as Germany. You know, when America had sent over 800 troops over there, and right before the sanctions that they put on Russia, Germany was sitting here saying, no, you know, what I mean, you need to rethink your sanctions. We need Russia. You know, so it's not wise for you to sit here and put sanctions on them and tell us to put sanctions on them when we need them. You know, and guess what? America put sanctions. Germany's like, what the hell? No, fuck that. I'm still gonna buy from them. I'm still gonna use their oil. I need them. Otherwise, my economy is gonna trash. You know? And so a lot of America's allies are saying, what the fuck, man? The hell's wrong with you? You know, and turning on America, man. You know, all these nations, you know, all these nations' minds are being stirred up, you know, to come up against, you know, America, man. You know, and again, it's the Lord Yahweh Shem Shah, like it says in Proverbs 21 and verse 1. You know, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh Shem Shah, and he turn it with whithersoever he will, right? So all these things are being done by Yahweh Shem Shah, man. You know, but the Lord Yahweh Shem Shah is having America be that main problem, so to speak, man. You know, they're the ones out here doing these stupid acts, which are having these nations come up against them, man. You know, which is dumb on their part, but hey, call law Yahweh Shai, man. You know, because it's every time that he does that, every time a nation comes up against America, it's one step closer to this place being fucking destroyed, man. You know, which is what we want, man. You know. But I'll keep reading. It says, verse 12, it says, let the heathen be awakened. It's like let the heathen be awakened and come to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. And this is what ultimately all this is leading up to. The valley of Yahweh Shaphat. You know, which means what? Yahweh judges, right? The Most High judges. This is where that when Yahweh Shai cracks that sky open, these nations are going to get judged. They're going to be destroyed. This is what it's leading to, is that World War III, that final prophecy before Yahweh Shai comes, man. You know? It says, for there will I sit to judge the nations round about, right? So again, just proving that this war is leading to, you know, or these minds being stirred up to come up against America and Israel, you know, is leading to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, or the valley of decision, as the scripture also calls it in the same, you know, within the I think it's two verses down, calls up valley of the multitudes and the valley of decision, right? You know, so this is what it's leading to, man. You can go ahead and get what you said.
This is Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 8. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to the prey. My determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them my indignation, even all my fierce anger. All the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy.
Right, man. You know, that's fucking heavy, man. That's beautiful, man. That's a prophecy that we can't wait for, man. You know, we literally cannot wait, but we're constantly, like scripture says, Isaiah 62 and verse 7, man, give him no rest till he establish and make Jerusalem a praise in the earth, man. And right. We're constantly, oh, Shai, man. Hey, speed up these days, man. We're tired. We want to get the fuck out of here, man. You know, and it's coming. It's soon. We see the signs, you know. It's almost here. Hey, but nonetheless, we're going to continue on. You can read Jeremiah 51 or 50 in verse 9. So, like, you read that, go ahead and finish that, and then we're going to jump to 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter.
Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 9, and it reads, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her.
Against Babylon, go ahead.
From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expertman, none shall return in vain.
Right, and this is what it's leading to, man. You know, leading to that destruction of America. You know, you could drop that one word, Jeremiah, or 2nd Esdras 15. It's like 2nd Esdras 15, verse 28. Again, going into more detail of what that's going to look like leading up to them firing, those missiles off at America. It's going to be great destruction within that area, those nations, getting together and fighting that. Go ahead.
This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 15 and verse 28, and it reads, "Behold, an horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east."
Right, which is ultimately, that's exactly where it's going to take place, man. It's going to take place over in the east, which is, for those that don't know, another prophecy that has to take place or has been taking place, is what the Euphrates River is drying up. Hey, that's beautiful, man. You go ahead and grab it.
This is Revelation chapter 16 and verse 12. And it reads, "And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up."
Right, and for those that don't know where it's at, the great river Euphrates goes right through Iran. It goes right through Iran, kind of at an angle when you look at the map. It literally goes from northwest to the southeast part of Iran into Iraq, and those kings of the east is going into Russia, North Korea, China, so on and so forth. All those nations that are over in that area, including parts of Iran, Turkey, so on and so forth. All those nations are ultimately going to work and send their militaries to that area, and it's not even just from the east. It's going to be that's just the they're connected continentally in that area. So of course their armies are going to be easy to come over, because that their river needs to drive forward for them to be able to come over, right? For their actual armies, their foot soldiers and their tanks and so on and so forth to be brought over there, But then you're going to have America, which is going to send, by plane and so on and so forth, and other countries as well. They're going to send their military there, But this is basically what it's talking about. That's a prophecy that has to take place before World War III can take place. Go ahead.
And the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared.
Right, the kings of the east might be prepared. Right, man. Yeah, going back to 2nd Ezra 15, you read verse 28 again.
2nd Ezra chapter 15 and verse 28, and it reads, "Behold, an horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble."
Right, man. Ultimately, a lot of these Muslim nations, they stick together. So Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, so on and so forth, Saudi Arabia, so on and so forth. All these nations are in that area, and they're they're gonna be there, man. It's not like they're not gonna be there. That's their area, man. And they know it very well. If they're gonna be there, it's gonna be a lot of Muslim nations that are gonna take place.
And it reads, verse 30, "Also the Carmanians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians."
Right, and those Carmanians is going into the Iranians, man. They have many different names, or a few different names within the scriptures, man. Persians, Carmanians, and so on and so forth, man. And these nations, are ultimately going to fight against Israel, America, and so on and so forth.
Verse 31, "And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them, then these shall be troubled and keep silence through their power and shall flee."
Right, man, and it says, and they shall remember their nature, man. And going back in Genesis, verse chapter 16. Basically speaking to the angel. Matter of fact, I'll just read it. Genesis the 16th chapter. I'll read verse 6. It says, but Abraham said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thy hand, do to her as it pleaseth, because she was upset, right? She was upset that she gave her handmaid to Abraham to, bring forth a child, and he was like, whatever, do whatever you want with her. And it says that when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. Right? Says the angel of the Lord, she left, right? That she was, basically scolding Hagar, which was the handmaid, Sarah's handmaid, which Sarah gave to Abraham to ultimately bring forth, children, because Sarah couldn't do it at the time, her womb was closed, right? Verse 7, it says, and the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way of Shur. And he said, hey, Hagar, Sarai's handmaid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Right, you go into Ishmael, because that's exactly the son that she bore was, Ishmael. You look at all these Ishmaelite, countries, man. There's an abundance of them, man. Lebanon, Pakistan, Kazakhstan. Not Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan sort of like Russian, sort of, but Pakistan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq. Really that whole area right there, man, is Turkey. Is all Ishmael right there, man. That's a lot, And it says right here, continuing on verse 11, it says, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, which is Ishmael, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And so this is the mindset that, when it says, they shall remember their nature, this is the mindset that they're going to go back to, because not only, is Russia being turned back, but these Ishmaelite nations are being turned back, right? Remembering their nature, going back to that wild, warring type mentality, just like Russia is, man. You can continue on that.
2nd Ezra chapter 15 and verse 33, and it reads, and from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them and consume some of them, and in their host shall be fear and dread and strife among their kings.
Right, because ultimately, these nations are going to fight against Israel and America. And there's going to be, Amalekites, Israelis, within America, within, obviously Israel, and they're going to catch that fucking hell, man. Keep going.
It reads, verse 34, behold, clouds from the east and from the north unto the south, and they are very horrible to look upon, full of wrath and storm.
Right, and it's going into these nations, man, being gathered together, man. Go ahead. Which is, going into, their airplanes, their jets, their helicopters, they're really everything that they got, these big ass airplanes, their communication airplanes, whatever you want to call them, man, they all the nations, from the ones on the ground to the ones in the air, man, they're great, man. It's gonna be a great sight, man. Go ahead.
God, it reads, verse 35, they shall smite one upon another, and they shall smite down a great multitude of stars upon the earth, even their own star, and blood shall be from the sword unto the belly, and dung of men unto the camel's hoe.
Right, man, because it's gonna be mass destruction, man. These nations are gonna be fighting against each other, man. And you're gonna have lieutenants, captains, generals, privates, corporals, sergeants, all being killed, man. From the top even to the fucking bottom, man. Hey, everyone's gonna be fucking put to death in that time, man. All these militaries coming up against each other, man. It says verse 36, and dung of men unto camel's huff, man. You know, we're talking about mass death, man. You know, that's crazy, man. The hump is the hump on his back, man. That's a lot of people. You know what I mean? Come on, man. That's almost like, you know, when it talks about, you know, the blood up to the horse's bridle, man. You know, so it's kind of, you know, sort of another form of that, man. You know, kind of keep going.
Verse 37, and there shall be great fearfulness and trembling upon earth, and they that see the wrath shall be afraid, and trembling shall come upon them.
Right, man, because this not only is it going to be a time, you know, of war, hey, but this is going to be a time of there's going to be earthquakes going on, and there's going to be famines that are going to take place, and you're going to have storms going on, and you're going to have Yahushai at the peak of you know World War III. Yahushai is going to come through, you know, with his coming to his great glory and great power and his army, you know, and so this is going to be the most unbelievable time that has, you know, ever been described on earth, man. And people are going to be so fucking afraid. Scriptures talk about people's hearts failing them for fear, man. You know, seeing those things that are coming upon the earth, man. You know, people are going to literally be dropping dead, and nobody's going to touch them, man. They're going to be in so much fear. Imagine the level of fear that you got to fucking feel to just fucking die.
Heart just explodes.
You know what I mean?
Damn.
Come on, man.
That's crazy.
This is the time that's fucking vastly approaching, man. We got the Charagma, one fucking prophecy left before this takes place, man. One. We literally got a fence, a see-through fence.
Yeah, I said a gated fence.
You can see what's on the other side, man. And the Charagma is that fence, and we see what's on the other side of it, man. We see what's coming. Yes, the Charagma. You know, hour of temptation, Jacob's trouble is going to be a great time. Hey, but nothing like this, man. It's still going to be mass death, Esau. You know, it's going to be a time of its own. Hey, but this is going to be crazy, man. World War III is going to be the world, the war to end all wars, man. Literally.
Yeah.
You know? So it's got to be great. It's got to be above and fucking beyond, man. You know? Can we keep reading?
All right, bro. Verse 38. And then shall there come great storms from the south and from the north, and another part from the west. And strong winds shall arise from the east, and shall open it. And the cloud which he hath raised up in wrath, and the star stirred to cause fear toward the east and west wind, shall be destroyed.
Right, and that's, you know, the storms ultimately going into these nations, you know, their militaries, man, you know, coming together, clashing together, man, you know, fucking fighting, bang, boom, you know, kapow, here, there, and over there, you know. It's going to be fucking bad, man. You can keep going.
Verse 40. The great and mighty cloud shall be lifted up full of wrath, and the star, that they may make all the earth afraid, and them that dwell therein. And they shall pour out over every high and eminent place and a horrible star.
Right, keep going.
Fire and hail and flying swords, and many waters, that all fields may be full, and all rivers with the abundance of great waters.
Right, man. That fire and hail and flying swords is going to what? You know, those missiles and so forth are going to be fired off, man. You know. Hey, if you have the ISAP, if you're a part of the sheepfold, hey, guess what? You can see these things, man. You can literally see these things take place, man. It's going to be such a great time, bro. Mass death, a bombs being shot off, grenades going off, a missiles being shot off from these helicopters and these jets and so on and so forth, hitting the ground, blowing people up. Fucking people's bodies being split into fucking pieces all over the place, man. You know? An eye over here, 100 yards over here, a foot, a mile that way. You know? Come on, man. Being carried in the wind, being carried in the fucking tornadoes that's also happening at the same time. And we're talking about craziness, man. Complete fucking utter chaos in the whole earth, man. You know? Carl, go ahead.
Verse 42. And they shall break down the cities and walls, mountains and hills, trees of the wood and grass of the meadows and their corn.
Right, man. So we're talking about valleys, we're talking about cities, you know, all these places being completely fucking destroyed, man. You know? being completely laid waste, you know?
It reads, and they shall go steadfastly into Babylon and make her afraid.
Which is talking about going back, going into the peak of, the war, man. So where these nations are going to finally say, fuck it, hit that red button, and those ICBM nuclear missiles are going to be guided over to America, man. Guided right over to Babylon, man. Keep going.
It reads, verse 44, they shall come to her and besiege her, the star and all wrath shall they pour out upon her. Then shall the dust and smoke go up into the heaven, and all they that be about her shall bewail her.
Right, so smoke shall go up in the heaven. It doesn't say the earth, the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, man. This is what's coming, and this is what's going to take place. We read it in Jeremiah the 50th chapter, really brief, view of it. Jeremiah the 50th chapter, the 9th verse, man. All these nations are going to come up against America and shall shoot their arrows at her, man. Because that's going to be the end of World War III. When America, when all these nations hit that red button, all that missiles get shot off at America, because at the peak, once they shoot that, or once they fire those missiles off, simultaneously, at the same time that their hands coming down, a laser beams are coming right through the brick walls and killing them as soon as they hit those buttons. It's going to be too late. ICBM nuclear missiles are going to be fired off, man. It's going to be too late. They're going to die at the same. We're talking about nanosecond right after they hit that button. They're going to be put to death, man. And I'm not, giving you literal specifics of time, but it's going to be simultaneous, man. The same time that, the chariots are here destroying these nations, which you can read about in 2 Kings 13th chapter, which is a beautiful chapter. It's when Yahweh Shah ultimately comes, breaks the sky, and is destroying these militaries, man. Because that's what's going to happen at the same time that these nations fire off these nuclear missiles, man. And at that same time is when Yahweh Shah is going to gather the elect just before, like I said, the elect shall scarcely be saved, man. And we're talking about barely, man. The skin of their fucking teeth, they're going to be saved. But this is what's going to take place, man. These nations are going to destroy America. This is America's end all fucking be all, man. And it starts, and we see it by these two main nations that play one of the largest, if not the largest, roles for each of them, for this prophecy, which would be Iran, which is having problems and skirmishes with Israel, and then you got Russia, which is the main nation, that's going to ultimately fire off the most missiles and so on and so forth that are going to hit America, man. Because Russia is a guard unto the nations, and Russia is going to ultimately gather up these nations, like it says in Revelation, I think it's the 20th chapter and the 8th verse, Revelation 29. Yeah, verse 8, it says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them to the battle, the number of whom is as the sands of the sea, right? So ultimately, Russia is that main nation that's ultimately going to fight against America. Hey, but there's another nation under that is going to have a huge role as well, and that's going into Iran. So this is what's going to take place, man. This is the prophecy that's coming right after the Karagma, right after the Karagma's forced and Jacob's trouble starts to hit its peak. Hey, World War III is going to hit its peak just like that, man, in a matter of days, matter of weeks, however long, man. We're just looking forward to it, man. It's right around the corner, We're in that time. Can you grab Habakkuk 2 and verse 3?
This is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 3. And it reads, the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry.
Right, man, and we're in that time, man. We're in that time. I got one more precept, and then we'll end it out. This is, unless you got precept. This is Luke 21, and I'll start at verse 32. It says, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all be fulfilled. Right, man. And it's definitely going to happen in this generation, man, whether you believe it or not. The America's destruction is going to happen in this lifetime, man. It says, verily I say, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. says, and take heed unto yourselves, lest at any time your heart be overcharged with surfeiting, drunkenness, and cares of this life, so that day come upon you unawares. Because not only is it going to be the day, of America's destruction, it's going to be the day that Yahweh Shai comes, man. And that's the day that you need to ultimately be prepared for, And the only way that you can get prepared is by taking heed to the words of Yahweh Shai, man. Taking heed to the words that are being spoken to you by the Lord's prophets, man, through the spirit of Yahweh Shai, man. And if you don't, like it says in Acts 3:23, he that will not hear the prophet shall be destroyed from among the people. That destruction is going to come upon you, unawares, Verse 35, it says, for as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth, right? Man, a snare is a trap, man, and animals don't ever see the trap before it gets to it, unless it's a poorly fucking, placed trap. Hey, this is not a poorly placed trap. This is the perfect trap, man, and a lot of you people are not going to see it, man, So therefore, this is going to come upon you unawares. Verse 36, it says, watch ye therefore and pray always. And this is what we need to be doing constantly praying. Revelation, the 15th chapter, I think it is, where it says, blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments.
16, yep.
Revelation 16 and 15, hey, you need to watch, man. Constantly be watching, constantly be praying, It says that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. And that's that victory, man. We want to be able to escape all these things, man. So hey, with that, we want to end it. We want to give all praise, honor, and glory to
Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash.
A double honors to the other apostles and other bishops of Great Millstone who very well, very beautifully. Double salutations to Dr. Martin, gospel and truth and sincerity to the best of their ability given to them by Yahweh Shem Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh Shem Shai, Lord, houses. I want to say shalom.
Shalom. Kwam Yasher Allah, Shalom.